Have you ever felt like you're watching life through a window, present but somehow separate? Maybe you've always been told you're quirky, overly sensitive, or too intense. For years, autism has been portrayed through narrow stereotypes, usually young boys with obvious challenges. But in reality, autism exists on a vast spectrum. And many people live decades without realizing their brain is wired differently. If you've always sensed you experience the world in a unique way, this video might help you connect the dots. Let's explore 7 subtle signs you might be autistic and never knew it. 1. You've been masking for years without realizing masking is the act of consciously or unconsciously hiding your natural behaviors to blend in with neurotypical expectations. Maybe you copy others' speech patterns, practice facial expressions in the mirror, or force yourself to make eye contact even though it feels unnatural. Over time, masking can lead to burnout, anxiety, and even depression because you're constantly performing instead of just being yourself. If you often feel utterly drained after social situations, masking could be a big reason why. 2. Sensory experiences are amplified, or muted autistic sensory differences aren't just about disliking loud noises. They can go both ways. You might feel overwhelmed by bright lights, the hum of fluorescent bulbs, or the texture of certain clothes. Or you might crave intense sensations, blasting music, deep pressure, or strong flavors. Sensory processing differences are one of the core traits of autism, but because they're deeply personal, many people don't realize theirs are outside the typical range until they compare experiences. 3. You have deep, intense interests when something fascinates you. You don't just like it, you dive into it completely. It could be a hobby, a subject, or even a specific TV show or historical period. You research it endlessly, remember minute details, and love talking about it for hours. In autistic circles, these are often called special interests, and they can bring immense joy, skill building, and even career opportunities. However, others might have labeled you obsessed or too much without understanding the value of this. Focus first. Social rules feel like a foreign language small talk, unwritten rules, and subtle cues. These can all feel confusing or exhausting. You might have learned scripts for certain situations, like how to greet people, when to laugh, or how to end a conversation politely. This doesn't mean you don't care about people. In fact, many autistic individuals are deeply empathetic. It simply means that the hidden, constantly shifting social rulebook isn't intuitive for you, so it takes extra energy to navigate. 5. You struggle with transitions and unexpected changes. Routine isn't just comfort, it's stability. A sudden schedule change, canceled plans, or even a different route to work can feel jarring and stressful. This isn't about being rigid for it. No reason. Change often means a surge of new sensory and social variables to process. Many autistic people find peace in predictable patterns because they create a sense of control in a world that can feel chaotic. 6. You experience emotional intensity. For some autistic people, emotions come in tidal waves. You might cry easily when moved, laugh loudly when amused, or feel deep frustration when misunderstood. This intensity isn't a flaw. It's a sign of a highly responsive nervous system, but in a society that often rewards emotional restraint. You may have been told to tone it down or stop overreacting, leading you to suppress feelings that are perfectly valid. 7. You've always felt different, even without knowing why. From childhood, you may have sensed you were out of step with peers. Maybe you preferred spending recess alone, found group work frustrating, or felt more comfortable with older or younger people than with kids your own age. Even into adulthood, you might still feel like you're pretending to be part of a group rather than naturally fitting in. That feeling of being on the outside looking in is something many undiagnosed autistic people share. Why this matters. Realizing you might be autistic isn't about labeling yourself. It's about understanding yourself. Autism isn't a disease to fix. It's a neurotype, a natural variation in human brains. With awareness comes the ability to advocate for your needs, embrace your strengths, and find communities where you don't have to mask or explain yourself constantly. If these signs resonate with you, consider exploring further. read first-hand accounts from autistic adults. Connect with neurodivergent communities online, learn about self-diagnosis, which is valid for many, or pursue a professional evaluation if you choose so. After hearing these 7 signs, which ones felt familiar to you? Do you recognize yourself in just one or two? Or did this list hit home in a way you weren't expecting? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And remember, being different doesn't mean being less. In fact, it might mean you've been extraordinary all along.